Good morning and welcome for making this our largest forum. Let me do a check there. This room is a big room. Can you hear me back there? Could I have a show of hands? Great. Over there? Great. You know, as Dick mentioned, we really have over 160 speakers and panelists who are going to share their experiences with us over the next 3 days. I really want to thank all of them. And this morning, we have two great keynotes coming up from Sandy Wasser and Donovan Waller. And Donovan comes to us all the way from South Africa. You know, last year, just before the holidays, Jeff Bezos, Amazon CEO, he announced on 60 Minutes that the company is experimenting with the drones making package deliveries to our homes. You know, drones been getting a lot of attention lately. You know, I mean, what I'm reading is right now, even college kids are experimenting with drones in their backyards and lawns and so forth. So I think this is a good forum for us to discuss, you know, what's the role of these connected, intelligent, or brilliant machines, what they're calling. So I'm going to start the conversation this morning about this, and I'm hoping that we could have a lot of discussion about this over the next 3 days. You know, this information appeared in Wall Street Journal just a few days ago. According to the article, ExxonMobil, Shell, and Chevron, they invested whopping $120 billion in 2013. I mean, yes, we know that there's no easy oil out there right now. You have to actually, it's getting more and more expensive to find it. But also the article pointed out that the project costs for these companies are soaring. You take a look at this, you know, and Chevron project costs just almost, you know, doubled in over the past 3-4 years. So these companies, along with all of you, I'm sure everybody's trying to cut costs, not by a little bit, but significantly in a big way. A little bit of recap from last couple of years. You know, we talked about, obviously, you know, Internet of Things, intelligent devices a little bit last year. But we also talked about, you know, collaboration and social media technologies, how they can help you improve the productivity of your people. We talked about virtualization and cloud, how these technologies can lower your IT, simplify your IT systems and lower your costs. And we talked about analytics and 3D technologies, how they can help you make sense out of a lot of data that you generate every day. Now, looking a little bit more closely, you know, what are the key components of industrial Internet of Things, as I'm going to call IoT? And certainly there are a lot of different names being used for this technology. You know, for all of this starts with intelligent devices. You know, products or machines, whatever you want to call them. You know, for us, you know, I remember when we started using smart devices in our plants, you know, back in the 80s. So for our industry, you know, most of all of you are using intelligent devices already in plants. Like asset monitoring, the same thing. In fact, last decade, most of the control systems you know you are buying, they all had asset management systems. So for us, some of that is already here in our plants. You got the building blocks. The same thing, networks and communications and so forth. That again, the plant devices, been connected for a long time. But we do have some new technologies as well, analytics and other software and apps and so forth. And I know some of you have already started using those technologies as well. And then, people, processes, and so forth. So most of the technologies that we need to build this connected world are already here. And in our case, in fact, some of these technologies are not old to us, but some of them are. Now, I want to draw your attention a little bit. Last month, Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Intel CEO announced a Pentium class PC and SD card form factor. And it consumes low power, and it has integrated Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. It supports multiple operating systems. It has its own app store, and it's going to be available in a few months. Intel did not announce the price, but it's going to be pretty inexpensive, because they are planning to sell billions of these cards. And it's not just Intel. Cisco has something like this already. Some other companies already have this, because right now everybody is expecting, almost every electronics company is getting into this ball game, because they are expecting, we are going to have something like 50 billion devices connected by 2020. Intel also announced two other things at this conference. Free McAfee cybersecurity software for all mobile devices. And they announced 3D software for tablets. So you can essentially take your tablet, and if you have a product, you can scan that product, and this software will create a 3D model that you can print on your 3D printer. So we have some amazing things coming in the pipeline, in addition to what we already have. At this conference, most major automotive companies also announced their connected car platform. In fact, automotive companies are jumping on this bandwagon as fast as they can. Why are they doing this? Because there are so many benefits. They will know who their customers are. They will know at all times where their vehicles are located. They will be able to monitor the health of the vehicles. In case there is a problem, they can actually alert you. It's a platform for them to start selling you more additional services. So we are going to see automotive companies move pretty fast in this direction, and I think most of the cars we will be buying soon will be connected to the internet. Now, they are doing this despite the concerns about cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is by far the number one concern on everybody's mind. Especially, we see, hackers breaking into something most every day. It is a challenge, I think, not just for a single company, but it is a challenge that every country, including our country, faces. In fact, I understand this week, President Obama will be making a big announcement later on about what the US government is going to do to help us, combat some of these threats. Besides cybersecurity, there are some other, challenges. Right now it's a little bit wild, wild west type of situation. Every company is doing their own thing. But we do need more standards. But everything is moving so fast. Unfortunately, standards have tough time to catch up, and certainly concerns about intellectual property. And as we see all these drones flying over our homes, certainly we are going to have to deal with a lot of social, political issues as well. And we know complexity. In the plants, you have thousands of these products connected, and it gets pretty complex. Now think about when you have all of these millions and billions of devices connected, how complex that system will get. I sometimes actually amuse myself. I think we have sort of found the challenge of the century. We always, people, as a human being, we like challenges. I think this is going to be a great challenge for us to connect a lot of these devices together and at the same time not destroying this planet. Now, let's talk a little bit about IT value proposition. Why do you really want to connect your devices in the plant or outside the plant? Simply, as I mentioned earlier, for the automotive companies, there are simply so many benefits. Now, personally, let me maybe ask you, how many of you, could we have a show of hands who's wearing some sort of a wearable device that you are monitoring your activity or health? Do we have some folks wearing some of these? Yeah, we do see some of those. This year, I think we are going to see a floodgate open about wearable devices. At the Consumer Electronics Show, those of you who really pay attention to consumer electronics, there are literally hundreds of companies coming up with new wearable products. So from this whole technology, we stand to benefit individually, as personally. We can monitor our own health and so forth. Then we can monitor, our home appliances, or maybe we could, if those of you are using the Nest, thermostat, your temperature in the house, you can do all sorts of things having connected devices. But in the plants, what is the big benefit for you in the plants? Certainly all of you are trying to eliminate those failures. With failures comes a lot of risk. So these connected devices can help you minimize, reduce these failures. And we'll talk more about that, how this technology can help you. Certainly, you can share information much more easily than you can share the information in the plant. You can lower your asset lifecycle costs and so forth. And I think more of you are already starting to, move your business systems to the cloud. And I think some of you may be already doing this. Increasingly, instead of buying the software, you can simply rent the software on a monthly basis and so forth. Just imagine if you can do the same with every asset. Maybe you don't want to go that far, but you can do that with your big assets. So you can, start moving toward that sort of a business model with this technology. Now, as industrial companies, I think our industry, we stand to gain two ways, because many of you, obviously, you use all these products in your plants, but you also supply products. So as a supplier of assets and products, you can also benefit in many different ways. Most importantly, you can improve the productivity of your people. In the case of, for example, automotive companies, just imagine if an automotive company could eliminate a recall on their cars. Maybe it's a problem they could, in fact, fix it simply downloading some software. Or maybe actually could detect the problem. How much they stand to gain. Certainly, I think those of you who are making products, you can start thinking of new business models, how you are actually, selling your product. You can certainly, hopefully, improve your customer satisfaction by using some of these technologies. I want to draw your attention to this IoT Architecture Consortium. It has been in existence for several years in Europe. And actually, URL is on this slide. And many of the leading European and Japanese companies are members of this consortium. And I encourage you to take a look at their website. They have been doing some very interesting work. And I just wanted to show you they have developed an architecture reference model that may be interesting to some of you guys. Now let's focus on the plant a little bit more. Why do you even want to connect a device to the internet in your plant? First of all, what I want to say is that you don't need to make any change to your control system. You let the control system do your thing, do its thing. And I know many of you have already started moving your business systems to the cloud, and with the interfaces, you are already moving more and more information to the cloud. And one of the big benefits of having information in the cloud as compared to the plant is that it's much easier for you to share that information within the rest of your organization. Now, once you do that, you can go a step further where you can start sharing a select amount of data with your service providers or your asset suppliers. And you can have, in essence, actually have a separate private cloud where you can move some of this information to, and from there, actually, your partners can subscribe to that information. I will talk a little bit more about that, how you can do this, but you can start doing this. Now, you can go one step further by having some of your big assets, maybe have dual interfaces. You can have, I know some suppliers are already selling devices with dual interfaces. You can connect it to the plant network, but also you can connect it to the plant infrastructure. You can, the second connection could be simply that you are feeding that information to asset monitoring system, asset management system. Why do you want to do that? Simply because you know how expensive it is to connect a measurement to the control system. It can cost a good amount of money. So some of the asset monitoring type of measurements, you can start feeding to a separate system. That system could be in your plant, or over a secure network, you could start feeding that information to the cloud. And certainly this thing is not for all the plants in every situation and every application, but I think for some of you, this could make sense and could save you a lot of money. Not only, that you don't have to pay to connect to the control system, but also by sharing this information with the asset suppliers, they can help you eliminate some of that downtime. You can do the same thing with assets in situations like an oil field or a mine or some other assets which are really hard to get to, difficult to get to, remote locations. So this technology certainly, makes sense in that kind of situations and applications. Now let's take a look at a little bit more closely how you can share some of this information more securely. Here is an example of an XYZ company using a pump from ABC company. And what this company can do is share what you can do is publish to your database a select amount of information about that product to your private cloud. And from there, the ABC company can subscribe to that information. And once, on a secure network, once that happens, then asset supplier can start to get the select amount of information on an ongoing basis, operational data, and having that operational data information, supplier may be able to actually monitor the long-term health of that product. And over time, help you minimize, get rid of some of those failures. And failures in plants, in fact, is big risk. You don't know what can happen. The same thing actually, as I mentioned earlier, as industrial companies, you stand to gain two ways. One is obviously you are the assets you are using in your plants. Another one is, if you are making your product, like in this case, pump manufacturer may be using a robot from a company in their own factory. So they can do the same thing with the robot data, publish it to the cloud and let the robot manufacturer share it, subscribe to it as they need it. So if you extend this further, I know, most of you have thousands of assets in your plants, and you not necessarily want to do this for about every asset, but some select assets, it could make sense. So you are publishing select amount of data for some of the assets to your private cloud, and then obviously those asset suppliers can have their network to monitor those assets on an ongoing basis. So certainly this asset value chain becomes a lot more complex. And it's certainly going to need a lot of planning. But we encourage you that you should start, thinking about it. You want to think about perhaps, what are your critical assets that you would like to do this sort of thing? What data you need to share with the supplier. So there's a lot of planning needs to go into this thing. But it is something I think would be worthwhile for you to think about. Not all of you, but I think for some of you, it could make a lot of sense. Now, last but not least, I want to actually tell you a little bit about, the programs. We have 10 different programs for you, as you can see, about all the key technologies that, I have talked about this morning. And these 10 programs will be held in 5 tracks. And track 1 is here to my right, and track 2 will be here. And actually track 3, 4, 5 will be in the back. I want to leave you with this thought that this is really a revolution in the making. And I think we, as an industry, have opportunity to lead this revolution. Because, we already, in fact, are using a lot of the intelligent devices, network systems. And I think this technology gives us opportunity to take our plants to the next level, eliminate those downtimes, maybe improve the business model, do business in a different ways. So I'm hoping that over the next 3 days, we can continue this discussion, and certainly, we at ARC, would be happy to share, work with you if there is anything actually we can help you, understand and plan and so forth. With that, let me leave you. Thank you very much.